Are children a grief or are they a comfort? They can be one or the other. Usually not both, but sometimes they are. But, but here we're talking about ultimately. Are they ultimate grief to you or are they ultimate comfort to you? And so we see there's two types of children. Ultimately, again, like two types of people. There's foolish and there's wise. And Proverbs breaks people down into these two categories and say, well, there's only two. There's either wise or fool. Which one are you? Don't be the fool, be the wise person. And that's the same thing for children too. Children can be wise or fools. And it really doesn't matter which age they are. Some of these things would apply when they're older. Some of them are for when they're younger as well. But I think we can see that, there's this idea that there's the possibility for children, our children, to be wise or fools. We want wise children, obviously. We want our children to be wise. And why do we want them to be wise? Well, that's what we're going to be studying today. So I got a number of proverbs I want to read to you. A lot of them say the same thing. Same ideas, just like the fool, but I'll try to give you some instruction in this. So let's go with this. All right, so let's look at Proverbs 10:1 and 15:20. They both start the same way. It says, a wise son makes a glad father. The last half of them are a little bit different, but we get the same idea in both of them. 10:1 and 15:20 both say, a wise son makes a glad father. Proverbs 23:15 through 16. It says, my son, if your heart is wise, my heart too will be glad. Same thing, basically, right? Wise son makes a glad father. Son, if you are wise, you are going to make me glad. My inmost being will exult when your lips speak what is right. That's a great proverb. And then 23:24 through 25. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. And then Proverbs 27:11. Be wise, my son, and make my heart glad, that I may answer him who reproaches me. That's a good one. So we're going to take a look at a few of the things here that we find in these proverbs. So let's start with the first one, Solomon's desire for his son. That's what we see here. A wise son. My son. You see this when we were looking at Proverbs 1 through 9, which is all Solomon's writings to his son. Solomon, who was a wise man, who was a wise father, prioritizes his son's wisdom over wealth. You see this. Throughout Proverbs, he's not saying, acquire as much wealth as you possibly can, and then you'll make me happy. If you are rich, if you have a bunch of gold and silver and you're able to provide me with a nice, comfortable life when I get older, then boom, then I'll be happy. He doesn't say that. What does he say? Listen to my words. Follow my teachings. Be wise, right? The whole thing is about wisdom. And how wisdom is more prized than riches and wealth. So he doesn't prioritize anything else. His priority for his children is get wisdom, people. Kids, get wisdom. If you're going to get anything, get wisdom. Get insight. That's what he says. And so that's what you should be searching for. And that's the hope for hopefully all of us, is that our children are looking for that. And it's not so much about a career. It's not about your sports. It's not about, as we're training children up, it should be like, hey, get the wisdom of the Lord. That is the most important thing. If you have wisdom, then all these other things will be, added to you, right? But if you find wisdom, fear the Lord, get wisdom. That should be our number one priority when we're training our children up. Like, it should be like, well, where are you going to go to college? You're going to get this scholarship, and you're going to get these tests done and all this other kind of stuff. You get all those things. But if wisdom is not first, then you're going to be a fool, and you're going to live a life full of misery and sorrow and pain. Let's just be honest. And you'll die maybe alone. I don't know, because no one will be around you. And I've seen that happen. There's no family. Everyone hates these people because they're fools. No one wants to be around a fool. Fools don't want to be around fools. Okay? So, you see that. I've been around plenty of deathbeds. And there's some that were wise and they feared the Lord, and they had a room full of people celebrating God and worshiping and rejoicing that they were going to be in the presence of the Lord. And then you go to these rooms where people do not believe in God, and it's misery, and it's sorrow, and it's anger, and confusion. Like, they don't know what the heck's going on. and they don't know what life's going to bring, and it's all this bad, right? So that's why Solomon was emphasizing wisdom. Be wise, because the benefits of wisdom are far, far outpace any kind of gold or silver. So his main concern was not riches, but his son would be wise, knowing riches are useless to a fool. A fool can use them, but it doesn't bring you anything good, right? I mean, if his sons were fools, they'd end up in hell anyway. So, what's money when you're going to end up in hell? It doesn't really do anything for you. So that was Solomon. So we need to remember that. He's emphasizing mainly the book of Proverbs is written for children and for us as adults. Remember what we should have learned in the past. If we didn't learn it from our parents and we're learning it from the book. Like, hey, I need to be wise. So there's also the idea of parental reflections on their wishes for their children. So we see this here as they're reflecting, and the Proverbs kind of are causing us to reflect on our own children. What do we want from them? Parents' desires for their children reveal their own dispositions, right? What do you wish for your child? Do you wish for your child to be wealthy? Do you wish your child to have this great career? Do you wish your child to, do well in school, have lots of friends? All these things are what you want. So whatever you're probably wishing for your children as they get older is probably what's in your own heart. Are they going to, and so what do you want? You want your children to follow the Lord most of all. That's it. You don't care what else they do. Just as long as they're following the Lord, they could be poor. They could be married, unmarried. They can be, as long as they're serving the Lord and honoring their father and mother, is that what you're concerned about? Or you're worried about all these other things? How do they look? Are they, do my friends work? Do they respect and honor my kids? It's like, well, then you're just looking for that from them. So really, it often reveals where your own heart is at. If you don't care about the eternal state of your children, well, then you probably don't care about your own. So worldly parents focus on providing material wealth, while godly parents prioritize their children's wisdom and righteousness. Like, as they're training their little kids up, it's like, we want you to be wise. We want you to make good choices. We want you to be righteous. We want you to do what God has said is the right thing to do. We can be poor. We can live in the poorhouse. We can have nothing. On Christmas Day, there can be no presents. But that doesn't matter, because we're training you to be a wise child. And that, in the end, that will bring us much joy, more so than seeing you open a bunch of presents on Christmas Day. Because later on, if they're, cheating on their spouse, doing drugs, and just hating people and being hated by others, it's like, well, those memories will be tainted, because now you're a fool. So that's the thing. We need to reflect. Parents need to reflect on, themselves. Like, okay, what am I doing? And how does that reflect on me? Is that really, because oftentimes our relations with children show where our hearts are at. So there's an importance of a wise heart and righteous speech. Wisdom resides in the heart, and righteous speech reflects that wisdom. That's what we see here in these Proverbs. My inmost being will exult when your lips speak what is right. That's what that proverb says. Well, I'll rejoice when your lips are speaking the right things. And it's coming from a righteous heart, righteous speech, a wise heart. And good speech comes from a heart full of good treasure, as evil hearts produce evil speech, right? So if our children are speaking things rightly, we've corrected them and said, hey, you shouldn't say that, or here's another way to say things, and that's coming from, because a lot of the times what they say is being, especially as they're younger, is coming from our mouth. So if your children are walking around swearing and cussing up a storm and hating on people and tearing people down, stuff like that, well, that's probably coming from you. That's where they learned it from. Or the ones that they're hanging out with. So you should need to be careful of who your children are spending most of their time with. That's just how it is. And so that's what you need. But if the heart is evil, then it'll produce evil speech. And so that's the idea of going after the heart of the child. We're looking for a wise-hearted child, not just to correct their behavior, which you can do, and you need to do that too. Like, hey, you need to do this. You shouldn't be doing that. That's good, but you also need to go to the heart of the matter too. So you have to do both. Because you know, some people, even some Christians, will say, "Well, I'm just going after the heart of the matter." Well, you also have to stop the behavior first, right? Because if the behavior is destructive and is sinful, then you need to say, "Hey, you can't do that, but here's why." So the why part is the heart part. And God does that to us as well, as He disciplines His own children. Like, He'll stop us quite often and then go after our heart as well. You see that what He does with the Israelites too. Like, no, you can't do this anymore, so I'm going to take you out of your own land. No, you're not going to do this anymore, so I'm going to destroy the temple. It's like, oh, okay, I don't want you doing this anymore, so I'm going to stop it altogether, and you won't even have the opportunity to do it. And now, listen to me, follow me, hear what I'm saying. So we need to do both. That's the truth. The joy of a wise and good child. There's a joy that comes from having a wise and good child. Now, wise parents experience deep joy and contentment from the righteous behavior of their children. We can. It's true. When you see your children and they're following the Lord, they're learning about God, they're able to correct other people, they're sharing their faith with others, then it's like, wow, okay, this is amazing, right? This is a great joy. This is one of the greatest joys of all. When they choose to do what is right, you're like, what? Because the struggle you have yourself with doing right. And so when you see that in them, it's like, wow, okay, God is working in them. And God is, hopefully working and using what I'm doing to bring that about. Now He can do that in spite of my horrible efforts or my failed things that I've done, or in spite of my sin too. But oftentimes He uses our work of our hands as well. He will bless the work of our hands. And that is true with children as well. So this joy is especially significant when contrasted with the sorrow of parents with undutiful and foolish children. The ones who aren't doing their duty, the ones who are being fools, who God has commanded, you must honor your father and mother. And then they just like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hate my mother and father. You see that there's a joy that comes from having children that follow the Lord. There is. And it's truly a blessing. So there's a responsibility of parents to guide their children, right? We see this. We're going to spend more time on this in a later study, hopefully, where we take the idea of the rod and all that kind of stuff that the Proverbs talk about. Actually, where it talks about actually training up children. And but here I just want to mention it because it has to do with what we're talking about. Parents should use all God-given means to make their children wise. Now, God has given us a lot. He's using script. He's given us a whole book called Book of Proverbs to make your children wise. If you don't use the Book of Proverbs, you don't teach your children the Book of Proverbs, they don't know the Book of Proverbs, you never read the Book of Proverbs, then you're missing out. You have a whole book right there. It's easy to learn. They're just little one-off things. It's written so that children can understand it too. You have a whole, especially for sons and daughters, you have a whole Proverbs 31. So sons know what to look for in a woman. You have what women ought to be when they, so girls when they're growing up, this is the kind of woman you want to be. This is one that honors God. This is one that will help you find a godly man if you want this thing, if you want these things. Love your husband and your children. That's what the older women in Titus 2 are commanded to do, right? That's what Proverbs 31. If they learn Proverbs 31 as a young girl, as they become a younger woman, and they begin a young woman and they get married, then they already know, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so that the older women, when they become older women, then they know they've been through that. Like they've been through those steps. It's the Bible doesn't say, well, you do whatever you want, just go for it. It's giving you what you need right there. All right, Proverbs 31, teach that to your girls. Proverbs 31, teach that to your boys. When they get older, then they won't fall into the trap of the adulteress and the prostitute, right? That's the idea. Like, you're not looking for someone who's like that. You're looking for someone who's like the Proverbs 31 woman. Use that as your checklist. Do you like to work? Are you lazy? Do you like to gossip all the time? It's like go through all the things that are in Proverbs 31 that she isn't, and go through the things that she is, and then you'll find someone that's good. That will be a blessing to you instead of destroying you, and be that constant dripping like we talked about. That's not what you want. And you can stop. You don't have to do that, right? You can figure that out before you marry that person. But if you don't, then you're in trouble. If you're just looking at the beauty, that's vain part, that is charm, that is deceitful, then you're screwed. So, so yeah, we got, okay, whether or not children follow parents can find peace in knowing that they fulfill their duty. So as parents, if we do everything we can, we use all the God-given means that He's given to us. We use Scripture, we use in the songs, we're bringing them to church. We have Christian friends for them. We have Christian adults in their lives besides ourselves. If we're doing everything we can, we have the church surrounding them, helping them. We're making sure that the church members are part of the lives of our children, that they know the children, that the children know them. We're making that effort to do that. Then we can have peace, even if our children end up being fools, because obviously we can't make them Christians. We can't regenerate their hearts. Only the Holy Spirit does that, just as much as we made ourselves believers. We can't do that for them, but we can use all the God-given means that we have to help that come about. And that's what we should do. I mean, we have so many helps, especially nowadays. I mean, you can do homeschooling, you can train your children there. You can read the Bible, you can sing songs with them, you can play music that's Christian, that is going to elevate them and teach them the Bible. There's so many things out there nowadays that we really don't have an excuse. We have a lot of means. And so if we use some of these things, we use as many as we can, as many as wise, then, we can find peace in the fact that, even though my child might turn out to be a fool in the end, I did everything I could, and I'm still doing everything I can to fulfill the duty that God has given to me, and that's to train them up in the way they should go. So, they won't depart from it. They will listen to it. Now, they can fight against it, but that doesn't mean they departed from it. Now, it's just like they know it's true. It's always with them. So they can't depart it. Now, they might not do it, but they won't depart from it. So, all right. So that's the end of our study for today, not this week. I got one more. We'll do a little conclusion here, and then we'll wrap it up. So I'll see you back here tomorrow, okay?